The international break is almost over and Game Week 12 is here. But unfortunately, over the break, there's been quite a few new big injuries. Thankfully, we've got you covered with all of the news, all of the replacements in this week's episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid. This video will be split into two parts, the first of which we'll be looking at those players you may already have in your team and which ones you should keep and which ones you should sell. After that, we'll be looking at some replacements with which players you should buy and which players you should avoid. Players will be tier listed with the best players at the top of the list and the worst ones at the bottom. Yes, now, welcome to FPL Mate. My name is Dan. We are back with a Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid video for Game Week 12, starting off, of course, with our wonderful forwards that you may already have in your squad. So let's go through these guys. First of all, we've got some keeps for you. Mateta is the first player on this list. I know some people disappointed with his blank in Game Week 11, but you're not going to get an FPL return from every player every week. Even Haaland has blanked this season. So Mateta, I still think, is a very good player to own with Wolves and Burnley in the next three. That is very nice. And even Manchester United, they are one of the weaker teams for chances conceded so far this Premier League season. So definitely a player that you want to hold on to ahead of this game week. Very good underlying data, as you can see, guys. 22 shots, 19 in the box, 11 big chances, 5.32 XG. This is all in the past 6 game weeks, so super high numbers here. Joao Pedro has actually improved on his numbers in the last couple of game weeks. Previously, he was barely shooting, but now, over the past 6 game weeks, he's up to 10 shots, which is actually a lot better than before. 2.16 XG, the majority of which has come in the last 2 game weeks, and Burnley up next. It's a very nice fixture indeed. And then we have Welbeck, also a player I would probably look to keep for now. Not necessarily a player I would buy, but certainly he is one of those guys who, whilst he's in form, whilst he's playing, he's a good player to own, but at any moment he could drop out the team. If you do have him right now, I think he is worth keeping for the next couple of game weeks. Monitor the situation, and if he can continue his form, then hopefully his minutes will continue, but it may start to get dangerous as the fixture schedule becomes a little more packed for Brighton and indeed all other Premier League teams. Moving into the monitors, we've got some more players with pretty decent numbers here, such as Voltemada, 2.68 XG in the past 6. Again, pretty decent stuff here. So not really a strong reason to sell Voltemada. However, the next 3 fixtures are imperfect for Newcastle, it has to be said. City, Everton away, and then Spurs. I think there are a lot of other forwards that do have better fixtures. But Voltemada, with that good data and with some good fixtures coming up from Game Week 15 onwards, could genuinely be a player to consider keeping if you don't have any other players you're desperate to get, at least. Bowen want to monitor, no injury issue right now, and I think the big issue with his fixtures is, Bournemouth, Man United and Brighton. If these were home games, we probably like the look of them a little bit more, but the fixtures are average at best. He is fairly expensive at 7.7 million, and although he's making plenty of shots, his XG numbers are pretty low over recent game weeks. XA, expected assists, creativity, a little bit better than some of the other players on this list, so a player to monitor, maybe a player to sell. Gyökeres want to monitor. We don't actually know if he is going to be available for Game Week 12 or not, so difficult to judge him at this exact moment early on in the week, but one to keep an eye on for sure. Similar situation for Šeško. We're not sure if he is going to be available or not for Game Week 12, but actually his underlying numbers have not been horrendous per minute, and the fixtures for Man United have been pretty good. So I think actually Šeško is not anymore really kind of a definite sell kind of player if he is going to be available and if you think his minutes will be okay, and that is a very big if, which is why he's so low in the monitor category. Actually, some of these fixtures for Manchester United look pretty good, actually. Going into the sell category, Ekitike has been bang out of form recently. Poor underlying numbers, just 0.45 XG in the past 6 game weeks. He has been rotation risk, and with Alexander Isak now fit and available, it is going to be difficult to see Ekitike getting regular minutes. We're not sure if he is going to be a regular starter, even in some pretty nice fixtures. So definitely a player to consider selling if you do have him. Chris Wood's still injured. We're still unsure if he is going to be available. His injury seems to be dragging on and on. But with the fixture against Liverpool away next, and maybe some uncertainty about his playtime even when he is available, it might be time to sell him if you do still have him in your squad. And Richarlison with that rotation risk and an Arsenal away fixture up next. Newcastle away in Game Week 14 as well. These are 2 of the toughest fixtures you will face in the Premier League as an attacker, these 2 away fixtures. So, yeah, Richarlison's certainly a player to sell, I think, if you do have him in your team. There's just not enough going his way right now in terms of, the things we look for in those FPL assets. So he is going to be a sell too. Moving on into midfield, guys, and if you've held Mo Salah for this long, I think at this point you've got to say, I'm keeping him. You've got to go the full way at this point, surely, because the fixtures coming up for Salah, who, by the way, is a bit of a differential now. Not too many people have him in their squads. These fixtures are actually pretty nice. We've got Forest here, West Ham, Sunderland at home, Leeds away. There's nothing wrong with these fixtures at all. And I'm sure a lot of Salah owners will be thinking maybe he can finally pay back the faith. And believe me, he owes a lot of people a lot of payback for a lot of faith. Let's put it that way. But yeah, plenty of shots for Salah, actually. 20 shots is very good among midfielders. We don't see too many players in the Premier League taking this many shots. 6 big chances, 2.5 XG, and a little bit of creativity there as well. 15 key passes. It's going to be one of the highest among FPL assets in the league at the moment. So he's certainly putting up some interesting numbers. The fixes are good. It's just that price tag. But if you do have Salah, I would keep him. That doesn't necessarily mean I would buy him, but if you have him, I would keep him. Looking at Declan Rice, some people selling Declan Rice, maybe disappointed last game week, but don't really see a strong reason to sell him. Doing pretty well for defensive contributions, 63 in the past 6 game weeks. A little bit of attacking threat, more so than last season. He's on those set pieces, of course, and we know he is getting results, but maybe overperforming just a little bit. Still, at 6.9 million, no strong reason to sell him. Enzo, I think, is going to be available for this game week. His injury, of course, was a flare-up of a previous injury, and really he requested to basically get subbed off in game week 11, and he requested the international break to recover a little bit. So we are expecting Enzo to be available versus Burnley in game week 12, and if he is available, and it seems very, very likely that he is, then he is going to be a keep for this game because it is such a fabulous fixture, and Enzo has such fabulous numbers. He's putting up some of the best numbers among all midfielders right now in FPL. Really, really high, particularly at his price range. He is kind of uncontested for underlying numbers. Right now, you can see 2.54 XG, 17 shots. He looks good every time he plays. This is not just the data. If you watch him play, you can see he is so heavily involved and has been so unlucky. So hopefully he's going to be available for Burnley. After that, we've got Arsenal in game week 13, and actually from game week 14, we could see Palmer come back into the team, take that number 10 position away from Enzo, if Enzo is even playing in that position. And yeah, maybe Enzo's appeal does start to reduce in the near future. But for now, I think he is going to be a keep. Monitor Gakpo, and I think unlike Ekitike, I think Gakpo, when he has been playing recently, has been playing a little bit better, actually. Ekitike started the season really well, and yes, Gakpo has been on the bench the last couple of weeks in all competitions, once in the Premier League, once against Real Madrid in the Champions League, as Florian Wirtz preferred on that left wing. But actually, Gakpo's numbers are really, really strong here. You can see in the last 6 game weeks, 2 of those he was on the bench for, and yet he still put up 2.6 XG and 1.22 XA. So these are really, really high numbers, actually. Slightly better than Enzo, in fact. And he has actually been delivering with 2 goals during this period as well. We know the fixtures are really nice for a sustained period of time for this Liverpool side. So although I think it is risky to buy Gakpo, if you do have him in your squad, I think he's probably worth keeping around, unless you are worried about that rotation, in which case, yeah, okay, fair enough, maybe you could sell him, because he is going to be risky, but when he does play, the stats suggest, when we watch him, it suggests, when we look at the fixtures, it suggests this actually could be a pretty decent pick. Eza is, you know, pretty average as an FPL pick right now. Fabulous player, of course, but the underlying numbers are, you know, they're okay. 16 shots, 1.5 XG. Creativity not really there so much at the moment for him. Fixtures are average, probably, you would say. But the problem is with Eze is the price. And that's why he's in the monitor section. I think if you are looking to free up budget to make a big move elsewhere or see another expensive midfielder you'd like to go for, but you're not sure where to pull the cash from, I think Eze is going to be the kind of player who could quite easily be sacrificed. But by far, definitely not a must sell, but definitely a player to monitor if you want to consider selling him. Greenish, another player with pretty weak fixtures, you would say average maybe fixtures at best here. You could consider selling. His underlying numbers have really dropped off a cliff over the past 6 game weeks. So for that reason, he is definitely a player that we need to keep an eye on. We've not been seeing FPL returns really. We've just seen that 1 goal in the past 6 game weeks, no assists. Not really good enough for 6.8 million and a player you could consider removing from your team. And Semenyo, this is the big news coming from today, guys. The FPL community completely missed this one somehow, but I found this news out pretty much by accident by going through some Ghanaian news sources to look for any injury updates for any of their players. And I found out that basically Semenyo does have a little sprain injury that could see him out for a couple of weeks potentially. We do need more confirmation on this one, but the Ghanaian FA, well, they've basically sent him home back to Bournemouth over the international break because of that minor issue that he has right now. So we'll keep an eye on that throughout the rest of the week, but it could be that Semenyo is going to be injured. I want you guys to keep an eye on this one. I don't want to say that he's definitely going to be out because this injury information is so fresh. We need an update from Bournemouth, the Bournemouth camp, really, to get a full idea on this one. But he's definitely a player that actually we might actually have to consider selling this week if he is going to be out for a few game weeks. If he's maybe out for 1 or 2 game weeks, you could consider keeping him, particularly if you have a lot of money tied up in him. But if you've only bought Semenyo in recently and he is going to be out even for just 1 game week, I think he's actually going to be a pretty easy sell. But certainly at the very least, we've got to monitor him throughout this week. Unlike Semenyo, I'm actually a little bit more optimistic about Kudus' availability for this game week. His injury was minor. He was touch and go for game week 11. That was 2 weeks ago by the time we get to the deadline. So I think actually Kudus could very well start in game week 12. However, it's a fixture away against Arsenal. Like we mentioned, we've got that Newcastle away fixture as well. These are rough fixtures, and Kudus' underlying numbers have not been great. He's kind of not really impressed when we've been watching him recently either. So you combine the poor stats, not look great, Spurs not look great in general, couple of tough fixtures here, and I think that probably edges Kudus towards being a sell. Anthony, another player who has dropped off a cliff in recent game weeks. If you did pick him up earlier on in the season when he was in good form, well, that form is kind of well in the past now, so a player to sell. And Reinders, you know, we know his form is was it ever really there in the first place? A bit of a flash in the pan kind of player, really. Newcastle away next with that rotation risk too is probably a pretty decent time to hop off Reinders. On to defenders now, and yeah, my number 1 keep has got to be Virgil. Even though he hasn't been doing the points recently, the fixtures are just so good for Liverpool from a defensive point of view. And I really do look at these fixtures and I think actually if you're a defender, this kind of, you know, suits Liverpool more than if you're a Liverpool attacker, midfielder or a forward, really. So, for example, Nottingham Forest scoring the least amount of goals in the Premier League so far this season, maybe outside of Wolves. And we've got Sunderland at home there as well. Sunderland, I know they have scored goals this season, but they've got some of the lowest XG rates throughout the season of any team in the Premier League. We also see teams like West Ham and Leeds, who are particularly Leeds, very poor finishers in the team. And West Ham, yes, they have improved a little bit, but that's still going to be a good fixture, generally speaking. And what we know is that good fixtures usually breed good form. That is even more true with defenders, and you know, history kind of tells us that. We also know that Virgil is very good for defensive contributions, 57 in the past 6 game weeks, so he's going to be picking up those defensive contribution points fairly regularly there as well, which is very nice. But aside from Virgil, other defenders to keep, we're looking at Timber, we're looking at Calafiori. Just a small warning, Calafiori, there was rumored to be a minor issue with him. I think that has been cleared up now. So we are expecting him to play. Not necessarily that I would be buying Calafiori with a fixture congestion coming up right now, but if you do already have him in your team, would be certainly looking to keep. I know a lot of people, again, disappointed that Arsenal finally didn't keep a clean sheet in game week 11, but there's plenty more clean sheets to come. Even a team like Arsenal, as good of a defense as they are, and you can see here, guys, just 2.7 non-penalty XG conceded in the past 6 game weeks. That is crazy, crazy low. This is a team that will keep clean sheets against anyone. You just got to trust the process with them and hold them in your team. Monitor Senesi. Obviously, we know he's the DEFCON master. 72 defensive contributions in the past 6 game week, which is really, really high. We've got some good fixtures as well. West Ham, Sunderland, and Everton in the next 3. The problem is with Bournemouth is they actually have been one of the weaker defences in the Premier League over the past few game weeks. And you can maybe credit that to some poor fixtures. And I think that's why we're on the fence here a little bit, and Senesi is a monitor. But generally speaking, when you've got good fixtures, you know you're going to get DEFCON, even if you don't get the clean sheet. I think he's probably worth holding on to over this period. Mark Gay did have some surprise bone bruising in game week 11 that ruled him out for that game week. But from what I can see and what I can tell, it is not a serious issue, and he has a very good chance of being back available for the Wolves game in game week 12. And if he is available for that game, I mean, Wolves barely score goals at all. So this is a really nice opportunity for a pretty strong Crystal Palace defence and improving Crystal Palace defence here. And a Mark Gay, who always seems to find a way to get attacking returns as well. He hasn't been too bad for defensive contributions, but far from brilliant. Over the past 6 game weeks, he has dipped a little bit, 28 defcon in 5 games, which is pretty low. But earlier on in the season, he was getting defensive contributions far more than the previous season. So which one is the norm? Was it the first part of the season? Was it the last few game weeks? I'm not exactly sure, but what I do know is that Mark Gay finds a way to points no matter what. So if he is going to be available, he is worth keeping. If he's going to be out for 1 game week, he's probably still worth keeping. So Mark Gay, high monitor, only sell under extreme circumstances. Alderete is now available, guys, following concussion. He is away on international duty with Paraguay, where he will be being reintroduced to first team football, building up his fitness, building up his match fitness in particular. Ready to be available for game week 12, and Sunderland actually playing with a back 5 in recent game weeks, which means more centre-back positions for Alderete to slot straight back in to the squad. We know he was first choice all the way up until that concussion issue that he picked up a few weeks ago. So against Fulham, a team that is not super strong in the attack, it's going to be a nice fixture for Alderete. After that, you're probably going to be leaving him on your bench for most game weeks, as Sunderland do have some pretty tough fixtures coming up. Van der Ven, probably not worth selling if you have other issues in your squad, I would probably say. Against Arsenal away, you are going to bench him, but I think there are some playable fixtures for Spurs coming up. Generally speaking, though, Van der Ven at this point is a cheap rotation defender that you might have in your team. He does have that attacking threat, as we know from his goals extravaganzas we've seen in recent game weeks. So you're still going to get that, but you're not going to get defensive contributions, and clean sheets are going to be rare too. So play him sparingly. You could sell him, but he's certainly not a must-sell. Into the sell category, I've put Dan Burn here with Lewis Hall back for Newcastle. I think there is going to be some question marks about who will be the left back for Newcastle when Burn returns from his suspension in game week 13. So there's going to be some risk attached to Burn even when he is available, and for game week 12, he isn't available. So it might be time to just get rid of him now, bring in a new defender, and just sort your team out for now. And we can monitor that situation. Maybe when Newcastle's fixtures get better again from game week 15 onwards, we can kind of reinvestigate who is the best Newcastle defender. Hint, it's probably going to be Malik Chow. Pedro Porro is also going to be a sell, not worth value for money, 5.5 million. He's not as benchable as someone like Van der Ven, and it's more difficult to rotate him. And of course, the big news coming this week, guys, is that Gabriel has picked up an injury. And although we cannot confirm with absolute certainty that he is going to be out, it seems like he's going to be out for sort of 3 weeks minimum. And we're kind of at a point in the season, guys, where because we see multiple, for example, in early December, we're going to see multiple game weeks within 1 calendar week. So actually, if you're missing for a few weeks, you could be missing for 4 game weeks. And that is not really what we want from a 6.6 million defender. So Gabriel, I think switching him out to a new defender is definitely going to be something that we're all going to be doing, as long as we get that confirmation on that injury. And I think we will. I really think we will in the next few days. It's not looking good here. I'm like 99% sure at this point that he's at least going to be unavailable for game week 12. But yeah, again, I didn't want to say with 100% certainty here because you never know. In football, strange things happen all the time. But yeah, I think I would be preparing to sell Gabriel. And of course, we're going to have a look at some Gabriel replacements. And by the way, guys, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you do drop a like. Massively helps out the channel. Do subscribe if you're new around here. You want this kind of content every single game week. And I'm actually, by the way, if you're wondering why I've got a mustache, I'm collecting currently for charity. The Movember campaign. I've left a link in the description if you would like to support and donate for this charity fighting against mental health problems, particularly with men, and also prostate cancer as well. Check it out, link in the description, and continue to watch this mustache grow throughout the rest of the month. All right, let's look at some buys here. We're going to be talking about a lot of players we've already spoken about in this video, so I will try not to repeat myself too much. But Mateta is obviously going to be a buy. Great underlying numbers, great fixtures, enough said. Joao Pedro is also going to be in here as a potential buy for you guys as well. He faces Burnley and Leeds in the next 3, which is pretty nice. Even Bournemouth, not such a bad fixture these days. And the numbers are up, as we mentioned. But Igor Thiago is the other player in this list that we haven't spoken about already in today's video. Brighton and Burnley, not such bad fixtures. Brighton do have decent underlying numbers defensively, but they have been conceding goals this season. And Thiago, I think he is a brilliant pick. For 6.3 million, you can't really do much better. However, I have put him second to Mateta, just because I think One, Thiago has been relying on penalties. He scored 3 penalties this season, so that has been a big part of why he has scored so many goals. And Mateta is also a penalty taker, so you know we could see that even up. But also Thiago's underlying numbers slightly worse than Mateta, but they're still brilliant. And for 6.3 million, you cannot go wrong with this pick. So Thiago, a fabulous, fabulous buy. Only second to Mateta. Of course, Haaland is no longer going to be on this list because you guys know by now Haaland is essential in FPL. We don't need to tell you that anymore. So Mateta, Thiago, love them. We've got Joao Pedro here as well as maybe an alternative now that we're seeing some evidence of his form picking back up, because that's what we needed to see from him in order to buy him. Burnley up next. Could it be a haul for him? Maybe. But going into the monitor section, Voltemada and Welbeck, 2 players we've spoken about already in today's video. But yeah, they are potential buys. I think I just prefer the guys above. And if you've got Haaland in your team, Mateta, Thiago, Joao Pedro, that is more than enough to pick from. And if you don't want to go for 3 forwards right now, Mark Gue is the player I would go for. So just go for the cheapest forward, 4.2 million man. He's not going to play very many games of football, but he is a really nice player to just take up as little budget as possible and allow you to really splash the cash in your starting 11, leaving Mark Gue on the bench. And I think with so many cheap defenders being so brilliant for FPL this season, you don't really need that extra slot on your bench to be a playing player necessarily. Particularly if you've already used your bench boost. If you haven't used your bench boost yet, would not go near any of these non-playing forwards. Isidore, not super keen on him. Yes, he has scored some points this season, but you know, I think there's just many better options right now. And if you are going cheap, I'd just go all the way down to Mark Gue, because let's be honest, if you're spending 5.6 on Isidore, hopefully you're not going to be playing him very often. And actually, a lot of the midfielders at a similar price are going to offer you better value for money than Isidore will do. And avoid Krupi Jr. His time in the starting 11 for Bournemouth is up. We did mention in Gameweek 11 that we thought he was probably going to be benched. And indeed, that did come to fruition. So now at 4.6 million, what you've got is a slightly more expensive Mark Gue, a player who's not going to be getting very many minutes, lots of one-pointers, not really playable because of that extreme rotation risk, and basically is going to have to sit on your bench for most weeks. So if you have him already, it does not necessarily mean that he's a sell, but you never know. He could come back into the starting 11 at some point. But if you're looking to buy that cheap forward, it's Mark Gue who's the answer for you right now. Avoid Ekatike because of those minutes risks, and Richarlison, minutes risk again, and the poor fixture against Arsenal. It's a terrible point to buy Richarlison. Into midfield, the number 1 pick for me would be Bryan Mbeumo. I haven't got Bruno Fernandes on this list today, but I will also include Bruno as a really, really high-ranking buy this week. And that's because Manchester United do have such brilliant fixtures. Everton at home next, Crystal Palace away, a little bit tougher, but West Ham and Wolves coming up in 14 and 15. It's really, really nice there as well. Bryan Mbeumo's looked really impressive recently, and although his underlying numbers are not crazy like some of the other players we've been speaking about in today's video, you can see he's very impactful on the pitch, and he's been very clinical with his shooting, with 4 goals from 1.4 XG. Can he continue that? Maybe. We have seen it before from Bryan Mbeumo being a big overperformer, so we could continue to see it again. Maybe a bit of a trend going on there. Is Mylasar still going to be a really nice pick for me if you're looking for someone slightly cheaper? 6.7 million if you haven't picked him up already. I think if he can translate his form from some of the other competitions into the Premier League, he is going to be a beast. I thought he was quite unlucky in Game Week 11 as well, where he did have some real big opportunities for attacking returns and was a little unfortunate not to be able to have them finished off. We've got Saka here as well. It's probably on this list has the best underlying numbers, 2.11 XG and 1.93 XA in the last 6 game weeks. This is pretty strong. Of course, that does come at a price, 10.1 million for Bukayo Saka. The fixes are pretty average as well, but I think because those great underlying numbers, you've got a nailed on player here, going to play every game and on penalties, certainly until Gyökeres is back. Set pieces as well to a degree. There's a lot to like about Saka right now. Looking at some of those other alternative midfield options, Szoboszlai is going to be on this list because of the fabulous Liverpool fixtures. He is nailed on for minutes. Does pretty well for DEFCON. 76 defensive contributions in the past 6 game weeks. Really, really high numbers there. Although that is going to depend a little bit on what position he plays. He is on set pieces as well, which is very, very useful to get access to those points. The problem is he is on 4 yellow cards right now. So if he gets that 5th yellow card, he is going to be suspended for the following game. And there is quite some time before the yellow cards is reset to 10 yellow cards as a threshold. So be aware, guys, about Szoboszlai. If he gets another yellow card, you're going to have some backup there. But when he does play, he's going to be a pretty nice pick. I like him. Minsa, a little bit differential here. He has been doing really well for assists in particular recently. Another nailed-on guy with pretty decent fixtures coming up for Brighton could be considered. If you want to go really, really out there, though, how about Garnacho, who actually, over the past couple of game weeks, has really been finding some form, putting up decent numbers, actually getting FPL returns with a goal and 2 assists in the last few game weeks. Really nice stuff there. As we know, there are some good fixtures coming up for Garnacho. And players like Garnacho, players like Joao Pedro, if you're looking to bring these players in, you could consider free hitting in Game Week 13 where Chelsea face Arsenal, because actually around Game Week 13, fixtures look pretty nice. And Granit Xhaka has been a defensive contribution monster, 77 in 6 game weeks, but in terms of that attacking potential, XG, XA, how many shots he's taking, etc., he looks a little uninspiring. So I do think Xhaka is a nice cheap option, but a pretty uninspiring FPL pickup. So if you are looking to cut the costs somehow in midfield to upgrade elsewhere in your team, then Granit Xhaka could very well be the answer, but he's not really a player I would, snap anyone's arm off for. And finally, some avoids. Jeremy Doku. I think away against Newcastle, this is a tough fixture because Newcastle have been a fabulous team. Defensively, when playing at home, it's really been night and day. It's been black and white, which is maybe kind of fitting when it comes to Newcastle when their kit colours. But they really have been so much better when playing at home defensively. And I think Doku, with still some worry about rotation with Man City, you're always going to get that. It's a difficult fixture. And even though he looked brilliant in Game Week 11, he really did look incredible. In Game Week 11, he's still got an early sub. His underlying numbers are still some cause for concern. So I think maybe just waiting one more week on Doku to gather more information might be the sensible thing to do. Gravenberch is also going to be in the avoid section here because of his pretty rubbish underlying numbers all season. Really, really weak. Even his defensive contribution numbers really weak here there. So for 5.6 million, you're probably going to be looking elsewhere, whether that is Xhaka or Minter or maybe even some of the other even cheaper options. I mean, you could look at Longstaff at 4.9 for Leeds, for example. You could look at Caicedo at Chelsea. I would prefer all of these kind of players to Gravenberch. So for that reason, he is going to be an avoid. And Semenyo, because of this injury issue that I really do think is some concern until we know more, he's got to be an avoid, really, hasn't he? Game Week 12 is a concern for him. And if you don't have him already, then, you're probably going to be grateful if Semenyo is a risk for this game week. And therefore, you've got an opportunity to actually, benefit from not having Semenyo in your team, where maybe he has done some damage to you in at least some game weeks this season. Looking at defenders, we're speaking about some players we've already spoken about. So Virgil and Timber, for example, but both fabulous picks. If you're looking for the Gabriel replacement, they are Virgil and Timber, as far as I'm concerned. These two players are way out in front as the best picks for that. Definitely players I would be looking to go for this this game week. Look really nice picks because of those fixtures for Virgil, because of Arsenal, how good they are defensively. It's a no-brainer, really, particularly Virgil with his defensive contributions. I think he could be one of the highest scoring defenders in the Premier League over the next sort of 10 game weeks. Not saying the number one, but, I think he's going to be up there. If you want to go a bit cheaper, Richards is, I think we probably agree by this point that Richards is the best 4.5 million defender. I certainly think that. I've had him since game week 1. For that very reason. And there's still plenty of good fixtures. You can even rotate him in games against Manchester United, for example. I think he is still playable in that fixture, to be fair. But we've got we've got Wolves, Burnley and Fulham in the next 4. These are really nice fixtures for a defender, despite them being away from home. So Richards, with his defensive contributions, with the regular clean sheets, with a cheap price tag, there's so much to love. And if you are looking to go cheap with a new defender, Richards is going to be that guy. Monitor Munoz, I think he is going to be a little bit more expensive than Richards, but if you do want to spend that extra money, maybe get less defensive contributions, although Munoz can still get defensive contributions, but you are going to get much better attacking potential. I mean, he's got 1 goal and 2 assists in the past 6. Then he's your guy. Much higher upside, but it comes at a price. It's up to you. Do you have the money to do it? If so, crack on. Senesi is also going to be in the monitor section here. I don't think he is as essential as he was previously, but with the regular DEFCON defensive contributions, he is always going to be an option. Ballard is really interesting. Now he is back in the team starting regularly, getting a crazy amount of DEFCONs per 90, which is really nice, and possesses a genuine attacking threat as well. If the fixtures were any better, I'd like Ballard a whole bunch, but yeah, if you're happy to spend the extra money on a Sunderland defender, this guy could be actually a decent little rotation option there. Although I wonder maybe if it's worth waiting until beyond game week 14 and 15 for those away fixtures against Liverpool and Man City, which are obviously a little concerning when you're looking at your defenders playing against these fixtures. But we've got De Ligt here as well. I actually think he is a little riskier than maybe some people are making him out to be. Of course, Man United have good fixtures, but they've also been one of the weaker defenses in the Premier League this season. And yes, he did score in last game week, but what we've seen so far this season, typically De Ligt is not the target man from set pieces. It's more likely to be Maguire when he's on the pitch. So I don't think we're going to see too many attacking returns from De Ligt. I worry about the defensive, the defense generally for Manchester United that has genuinely been pretty weak. Even against, you know, with these good fixtures, you have to wonder, are Manchester United the good fixture when it comes to defending at least? So yeah, not totally convinced by this one, but wanted to throw him on here as a player to talk about, at least someone to monitor. And avoid O'Reilly. We know Aït-Nouri is back available now, so there's going to be some risk there. We've got Newcastle away next. I know Aït-Nouri is going to AFCON very, very shortly, but yeah, I just wonder if, you know, this is just a bad time to be picking rotation risk Man City defenders, even at 5 million, even with some good underlying numbers. You've got to be a little fearful right now of O'Reilly rotation. And I think that really applies to any Man City defender whose name is not like Gvardiol or Diaz, I guess, or Donnarumma, if you want to go for the goalkeeper. So yeah, just genuine concern right now. And, you know, Newcastle away, it's not a good enough fixture to hop on. I think game week 13, we probably have another look at this one. Van de Ven, if you don't have him already, you're not going to buy him away against Arsenal. And Gabriel with that injury issue, yeah, it's too late to get the Gabriel points now. He's donezo probably for a few weeks. Looking at those goalkeepers, Raya and Pope, definitely players to keep. By the way, some people worried about Pope. He did have a concussion in game week 11, but, you know, he's going to be absolutely fine 2 weeks later, in theory at least. So yeah, we're not worried about Pope and his availability for game week 12, although we'll let you know if anything changes. I think even though the next few fixtures are bad for Newcastle, with a goalkeeper, you're looking long-term really, and after game week 15, we've mentioned Newcastle do have some really, really nice fixtures. If you're looking to sell a goalkeeper, I think Pickford and Sells would be good opportunities here. It's a nice time to sell these guys because they've got a weak fixture immediately, but they also have weak fixtures, generally speaking, coming up, and both teams really have not impressed defensively this season. And for the price you pay, particularly for Pickford, I think you can do a lot better right now, can't you? If you're looking for a new goalkeeper, Raya, if you don't have him already, and Sanchez is going to be here as well. 4.8 million, nice and cheap. A couple of clean sheets in the last couple of game weeks, another opportunity against Burnley, Leeds as well. Again, if you are free hitting in game week 13, Sanchez looks like a really nice goalkeeper pickup. I would not be looking to go for roughs this week, I don't think, even though I quite like the Fulham fixture. After that, fixture's really rough for Sunderland, and with a goalkeeper, not really a player you want to be rotating. So therefore, yeah, it's probably going to be not the time to buy him. We've got Liverpool, Man City away, 14-15. It's going to be a rough old time. And Mamardashvili, Alisson should be back either this game week or next game week. It's going to be really, really soon. So the time for Mamardashvili has unfortunately come to a close. If you don't have him already, definitely don't buy him. And if you do have him already, you are on your last legs with Mamardashvili. You really are. You might be able to squeeze another game or two out of him. But soon he is going to be gonzo with Alisson back in net. But those are all the players I needed to talk about today, guys. If I missed anyone out, let me know in the comment section, and I will give that player a rating: buy, sell, keep, or avoid. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here, and feel free to watch another video, or, you know, maybe donate to my beautiful mustache campaign. Movember link in the description as well. We also have the Opta stats tool linked in the description as well if you want to check out some more Opta stats for various players in FPL. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.